Welcome to this explainer. You know, if you look at any modern web page today, it's super easy to get totally lost in the slick designs, the dynamic layouts, and all those complex React components. But beneath all of that visual polish, there's a strict foundational text-based architecture making the whole thing possible. Today, we're going back to the roots to look at exactly how HTML structures the web.
We honestly take for granted how a browser knows exactly what to render. It isn't inferring context like a human reader would. It actually requires explicit coded instructions to parse the DOM and understand the exact architecture of the information it receives.
All right, Section 1, Anatomy of an Element, the web's absolute foundation.
At its core, the HTML element is the fundamental unit of our web document. It's defined by three distinct parts. You've got a start tag to open the command, the content right in the middle, and then an end tag to close it out. This creates a complete, self-contained package of data.
Looking at the basic syntax, notice the tag name wrapped in those angle brackets at the start. Your actual text content sits securely in the middle, followed by the exact same tag name at the end, but featuring a forward slash. That forward slash is essentially the universal kill switch for the browser's current instruction, whether that's an H1 heading or a standard paragraph.
Moving on to Section 2, the power of nesting. Stacking elements.
Think of this a bit like Russian nesting dolls. Elements contain other elements, creating the logical, structured hierarchy, or DOM tree, of the web. Basically, you open a large container, and inside of that, you place smaller containers holding even smaller ones. Let's see how this builds out in practice. A standard web page relies on four fundamental core containers: the HTML, body, heading, and paragraph elements. They don't just sit next to each other, they actively wrap around one another to give the document real semantic structure. Section 3. Building a web document. Let's look at the step-by-step structure.
So we can actually map this rendering hierarchy in three really clear steps. First, opening the root document to initiate the file. Next, opening the document body where the actual display lives. And finally, placing the visible text and assets right inside that body.
The HTML element is the ultimate root container, wrapping absolutely everything else. The start tag sits right below the document type declaration, and its closing tag is literally the absolute final line of the file. It sets the hard boundaries for the entirety of the web page.
Now, nested directly inside that root is the body element. This acts as the vital viewport container. If you're reading text, viewing images, or clicking buttons, you are interacting exclusively with content placed specifically inside this body tag.
And nestled securely inside that body container are our visible elements, an H1 heading and a P paragraph. Each of these follows the golden rule: a start tag, the content, and a neatly closed end tag, all safely tucked inside the larger body parent.
Section 4. Empty elements explained. What about tags without content?
Well, this brings us to a really special category called empty elements. These are unique because they hold absolutely no content, and consequently, they never need a closing tag. They function purely as efficient, standalone visual instructions.
A perfect example of this is the BR element, which commands an immediate line break. Notice how it just sits directly in the middle of the paragraph text. The browser hits that BR tag, drops the following text down to the next line, and just keeps right on going. No forward slash required at all.
Section 5. Golden Rules of HTML. The Rules of Survival.
Okay, rule number 1. You might occasionally see a page display completely fine, even if a paragraph tag is carelessly left open. Modern browsers try to be overly forgiving, right? They'll often attempt to guess what the author meant, effectively masking the error visually.
But relying on that forgiveness is asking for total chaos. A single forgotten end tag can easily result in cascading layout failures or just completely break your JavaScript DOM manipulation down the line. Always close your tags to ensure cross-device stability. It's an absolute lifesaver.
Rule number 2 involves case sensitivity. Technically speaking, an uppercase P means the exact same thing to the rendering engine as a lowercase p. The base HTML standard itself is actually not case sensitive.
However, the W3C, which is the main international standards organization for the web, strongly recommends lowercase for clean code, and they strictly demand it for more rigid document types. Defaulting to lowercase tags from day one is simply the industry standard for professional development, period. So we've completely deconstructed the foundational architecture of the web, from a single tag to a complex nested document.
But I'll leave you with this to think about. As web development becomes increasingly abstracted by visual builders and AI code generation, is understanding this raw, invisible HTML going to become a lost art? Or will it remain the ultimate superpower of the elite developer? Let that sink in.